and devotees. We have today special guests from the Bhakti Center community. Actually, we proudly consider ourselves to be part of the Russian community, I mean, the part of the Bhakti Center. And Kaustuba Prabhu, he's a disciple of His Holiness Tamal Krishna Goswami, and he has been a leader of the Bhakti Center for quite many years, a very empowered preacher, and used to be a very, very successful book distributor. So now we are very much honored that you kindly accepted our invitation. Since long time we wanted to invite you, and so today Prabhu will be speaking about wisdom of sages, right? That's a part of your. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, well, I'd be happy to talk about wisdom of sages. Should we do that just for a minute first? But sage of steady mind was my topic for today.
Exactly. So Prabhu, maybe you can kind of give a brief about, your preaching activities, maybe, and then we can focus on the topic of the.
Sure, I'd be happy to. And it's very nice to be here with all of you tonight. Some of you are showing me your faces. I always appreciate that, so I can feel a little back and forth. So if you are watching, you don't have to, but if you don't mind, it's great to see you. So I've done different services over the years, and but one of my old friends is Raghunath Prabhu. I'm not sure if all of you know who he is, but Raghunath, we both came from the same kind of scene when we were young, the New York punk rock hardcore scene. And so we knew each other, 30 something years ago as kids. But then when we're both about 21, we became monks. We joined up and became brahmacharis. And I, as you mentioned, Kashishwar Prabhu, I was distributing books, especially distributing Prabhupada's books. And Raghunath, because he was in a famous punk rock band, but it was a punk rock band that had very good positive message, especially what they call straight edge about not doing drugs. And then what he did, which was way ahead of his time, is then he brought into that world of straight edge, not becoming vegetarian and animal rights, which is a popular thing now, but back then it was not popular at all. And but then he became a devotee. He went to Vrindavan and he came back and he left the band and all of that. But after a year or two, he was convinced by some sannyasis to say, no, you should go back out and do this band again, but now you should talk about Krishna. You should talk about bhakti. So then he started a band called Shelter. And now not only he brought in not straight edge, not doing drugs and vegetarianism, but then he also brought in Krishna bhakti, which was a very courageous thing to do in that world. But many, many young people became devotees from that all over America, now all over the world, because that style of music has become more popular. So now, even decades later, sometimes his band tours and people are still inspired by that. But he and I have done many things in the services together in the past. But last year, a little over a year ago, he said, I want to, I have a couple people that I study with very early in the morning, and I was thinking of bringing it online and sharing it with others. What do you think I ought to do? And I suggest, and at that time, my wife and I, we just had this steady kind of vow. Every day we're reading 80 verses from Srimad Bhagavatam together. And we were both feeling such inspiration from him. I said, why don't you just read Bhagavatam every day, with these people and you can broadcast it live. And he started doing that. And he did more or less what we're doing right here. He would post it live actually in a really unprofessional way. He would just kind of hold the phone up, and he was doing it on Zoom, but he was also broadcasting on Instagram. And from that, more people started coming on it, and it grew to 20 people, 30 people, 40, 50. And then by about last September, I became like a regular co-host, September and October. And then we're getting more and more people that we're into. We're getting about 85 people every morning. And we also knew many people were downloading it. We didn't know how many, but we knew people were. And so then we said, let's go ahead and make this a podcast that people can watch every day. And we went back to the beginning of Bhagavatam. And on January 1st, we began, and we call it Wisdom of the Sages. And so every day at 5 a.m., on the East Coast, we read Bhagavatam, but we try to do it in a way that's fun and funny and a little bit like entertainment, you know, so that it's easy and fun, but still trying to go deep into the message and the philosophy. And we do, like on Saturdays, we have questions and answers, and on Sundays we interview people. We do that at 8 a.m. on Saturday and 8 a.m. Eastern time on Sunday. And then 5 a.m. Eastern time, we do Bhagavatam every morning. But now thousands of people listen because I don't know if all of you know, but there's a very popular podcast called the Joe Rogan Experience. It's the most popular podcast in the world. The person is very famous. It's a different world that we live in now. It's like being on that show is like as big exposure as you can get. It's like being on Oprah or something like that. And Raghunath knew that person going back many years. And so 3 weeks after we launched Wisdom of the Sages, he got invited to go on the Joe Rogan show. And they put a little link on it. And so then thousands of people started, you know, we had about 800 people listening a day, and then like it was 10,000. And so now there's like thousands of people every day listening to Bhagavatam. But again, we try to make it fun. And so if you want to check that out, you can write, if you want to tune in live in the morning, you can write to wisdomofthesages108@gmail.com, and they'll give you the Zoom codes. Otherwise, you can watch it at any time on YouTube at Wisdom of the Sages, Apple Podcasts, Wisdom of the Sages, Spotify, Wisdom of the Sages, and a lot of the other podcast platforms. It's on there. So, you know, if you'd like to come and be a part of that, please feel free. We're always happy to have more people listening and participating. So that's my main thing. What we also do is we have a Patreon page, which is a page where people that become monthly donors can go in to get more information and more classes. And there we have yoga classes, cooking classes, Shastra classes, Ayurveda classes, and there's a whole message board of conversations going on about kirtan, about cooking, we have a whole 12-step recovery groups meeting, you know, so it's kind of growing. And to become a patron, you can give $1 a month or $108 a month, whatever people want to give, they can give. So that's Patreon/Wisdom of the Sages, patreon.com/Wisdom of the Sages. So that's another place to interact. So that's kind of like, it's enough to be a full-time occupation for us now. So we're enjoying that, but I still serve at the Bhakti Center too. And I'm always very happy to do things like this right now. Happy to be with you all here tonight. Is that all right?
Yeah, thank you. It's so impressive. I mean, we have been dreaming about something like that. I mean, we are trying, like Ishwari Rani, she's doing very often also some organizing online.
Well, maybe we can have Kishori Rani come on our show briefly for a few minutes one day, and we can announce what you're doing. If there's any, everything you do is in English or is it in Russian?
In Russian.
Okay, so then I don't know how many Russian listeners we have. But I mean, we may have them, but how many Russian speakers? I'm not sure. Okay, shall we begin then?
Yes, please. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so today's topic, you know, I'm calling it a sage of steady mind, which is a phrase that comes from the Bhagavad Gita, right? In Sanskrit, the phrase is Stita Dhira Muni, a sage of steady mind. And I'll quote that verse and I'll read from it for you. Oh, hey, maybe before I say more too, I'm always happy to take questions at any point, or, you know, so like if people want to raise their hand or hit that little button that makes the hand raise up or something like that, or write it in the chat thing, or if the two of you, you know, Kishori Rani and Keshashwar Prabhu, if you want to see if someone has a question, you know, I'm always happy to take questions. So I like to keep things kind of informal and keep it kind of free, not get too bogged down. and so please feel free to ask any questions and you know, and we'll keep it light. So this is my thought, that a year ago, I was asked to teach a 1-month course on the Bhagavad Gita, which I taught in this past January in India at the Govardhan Eco Village. Now, it was the first time in my life that I had been asked to teach like a full, long Bhagavad Gita course where every day you get together for a month and you just study Bhagavad Gita together. It's just something I always wanted to do. And I had my first opportunity to do that. So to prepare for that, I just started to look at the Bhagavad Gita again, which is a book that I've been reading for over 3 decades. And just try to read it and try to see, I want to see, how do I want to present the Bhagavad Gita? Because typically you could just try to work your way through the whole thing, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's fine. But I was trying to think of, I want people to walk away with something, you know. I want them to walk away with a new relationship with the book and everything like that. So I was reading it and thinking about it. And it occurred to me as I was reading it that Krishna was speaking to Arjuna about 5 different levels of spiritual advancement, or let's say evolution, you know, spiritual evolution. One of them was duty. And the next one is knowledge. And the next one is wisdom. And then after that comes absorption. And finally, love. Right? That I saw a path here that he's speaking on these different levels, from duty to knowledge, to wisdom, to absorption, and to love. And I thought to myself, you know, I've been practicing bhakti for, again, something like 33 years or something like that. And some of these things I'm able to practice, and some of them are much more difficult, like duty. When I became a brahmachari, like when I was 21 years old, I became a brahmachari. So I was a monk, and I was given duty, right? I was told what to do. I was meant to wake up very early, you know, at 3 a.m. or something like that, and take a cold shower and get dressed in certain clothes, and then spend a certain amount of the time, you know, chanting like 16 rounds. I was to spend a certain amount of time studying, singing certain songs and meditations. Then I had, you know, service to go out and do every day. You know, I was selling books and so on. That was my duty. Come back. And those were things that, like, I recognize the value in duty, because it's really the first step in mastering the mind. The mind says, do this. And I decide, no, I'm not going to do what my mind wants me to do. I'm going to do what I know is right to do. I'm going to do my duty. Right? Yoga means controlling the mind, and duty is the first step in controlling the mind, right? Whether we're a mother or a father, you know, mother and father, they have duties to do, right? They can't neglect them. The mind may say, I don't feel like, you know, taking care of my child today, but you say, it doesn't matter that my mind's telling me to do that. I have a duty to do, and I have to do it. And in this way, we stop doing exactly what the mind tells us to do, and we start to do something for the higher purpose. And that's the beginning of mastery of the mind, or the beginning of yoga. So I was giving all kind of duties to do as a brahmachari, and I could do them. I could decide, this is what I'm going to do. And anyone could do them, actually. Like, any one of you could do those same things. And when I say that, what I mean is, maybe if I said, you know, you should wake up at 3 o'clock every morning and take a cold shower and then chant 16 rounds, and that, you might say, I don't think I could do that. But if someone put a gun to your head and said, wake up at 3 o'clock, go take a cold, you would do it all. So you could choose to do it. We could all choose to do that. And then, so you go from duty, where you begin to master the mind and control yourself, to a level called knowledge. And with the way that the Bhagavad Gita speaks about knowledge is that there's 3 subjects to understand. And when you understand these 3 subjects, you have knowledge. In Sanskrit, the term is jnana. And so those 3 subjects are God, the soul, ourselves, and the material energy, right? God, the soul, and the material energy. You can say Atma, the soul, Paramatma, and Prakriti, or Ishvara, Paramishvara, and Prakriti. You know, like, there's the soul, there's God, there's the material energy. And there's not, and so knowledge is based around understanding these 3 topics and how the 3 relate to each other. That God is the source of both the soul and the material energy. That the material energy is working under the control of God. That the soul is a spark of spiritual energy of the same nature as God. That we have independence, and we can either take shelter of the material energy and become covered by it, or we can reconnect with God, and our true nature will be uncovered that way. et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And there's much more that can be said, but these are the very basics of the knowledge. And you can go deeper into what that knowledge means and cultivate that. And that knowledge is going to have a lot to do really with the material energy. What is the nature of this material energy that we become confused by and we become bewildered by and we get absorbed in and we get all caught up in? The person that has knowledge or jnana can look at that material energy and say, I'm not going to play that game anymore. I see that my material attachment leads to pain. I see that my material detachment gives me relief. That's called knowledge, right? Jnana, right? Now, just like with duty, it's something that as a young man, I was just able to say, okay, I'm making a decision. I'm going to follow duty. I'm going to, Krishna can give duty in the Bhagavad Gita. My senior monks could give me duties to follow. I could follow them. Knowledge is something similar. If if someone put a gun to your head and said, come back in a month and I want you to be able to explain, the three modes of material nature and this, you would study it very seriously and you would learn it and you would be able to present it. So that's another thing, both duty and knowledge, that we can make a decision and say, I'm going to do this. Okay, but now this is the point, and this is going to become the key point in this whole conversation that I'm having tonight, is that duty, we can choose to do it. Knowledge, we can choose to learn it. But going from knowledge to wisdom, that can take a lifetime of practice. That is something that someone puts a gun to my head and says, be wise. I don't know if I can do it. Because now the term for knowledge commonly used in Bhagavad Gita and other books is jnana. And the term for wisdom that is sometimes used is vijnana. It means that I don't just know this theoretically, but I know it so deeply, so clearly, that I move through this world in a certain state of consciousness. Okay? And I want to discuss what that consciousness looks like. That consciousness, I'm going to sum it up with 3 different Sanskrit terms that are used in the Bhagavad Gita. And I'm going to say that this is what a sage of steady mind looks like. This is what a wise person looks like, what they understand and how they behave. That it's one thing to learn knowledge theoretically, but I want you to really understand what is meant here by vijnana, or deeper understanding. That's called the sage of steady mind. And if we could come to the level of the sage of steady mind, then the possibility of absorption opens up. Because when our mind is disturbed by external things, we can't go deep into the holy name. We get distracted all the time, right? We all maybe chant some japa, but we find the mind is always going here and there because we're still caught up in these external things. We're still attached to these external things. We're still disturbed by these external things. We're still confused or attracted or bewildered in different ways by these external things. And therefore we can't go internal because we're caught up in the external. So the sage of steady mind is moving through this world, not disturbed by the externals. And then they can become absorbed. And if you can become absorbed in the holy name very quickly, everything, it's powerful, right? The holy name, these sacred books, the association of the devotees, standing and taking darshan of the deities, these have power, spiritual power in them. But our problem is we're not absorbed in it, so it doesn't transform us very quickly. It's very slow. Right? It's like if I want to get a suntan, like I got a little bit more of a suntan than I usually do right now. Right? So if you want to get a suntan, the sun is there. The sun is powerful. It's there all the time. But you have to go out into the sun to get it. If not, you're not going to get much effect is going to be there. If you put some of the stuff on your skin to block it, it's getting blocked. It's still having some effect, but it's being blocked. As long as our mind is still attached to external material things, still disturbed by this, still elated by that, still confused, not realizing our true spiritual nature, then when we chant the name, the mind cannot be absorbed in it. Not very deeply, and the progress is slow. But if we can come to that level of a sage of steady mind, when we chant, we'll be able to go deep into it and become transformed. And from that comes love, right? Divine love, prema. So duty, knowledge, wisdom, absorption, love. Krishna speaking on all these levels. Let me read one verse before I'm going to talk about the sage of steady mind and what their qualities are like. But let me read one verse from the Bhagavad Gita. Maybe I'll read two verses. This verse is going to describe, this is the verse where the term sage of steady mind comes from. This is a verse that uses the term Stita Dhira Muni, sage of steady mind. It's text, chapter 2, text 56. And the verse reads, Dukesh Vanudvignag Manaha, Sukeshu Vigataspriha, Vita Raga Bhaya Kroda, Stita Dhira Muni Uchate. Okay, so it says, one who is not disturbed in mind, even amidst the threefold miseries. Even when miserable things are happening to me, my mind is peaceful. Or elated when there's happiness. Something good happens, I don't get all lost or caught up in it. I'm like, okay, that's the way this world works. It goes up, it goes down. I don't go up and down with it. I stay steady. One who's not disturbed in mind, even amidst the threefold miseries, or elated when there's happiness, and who is free from attachment, fear, and anger. Vita, raga, bhaya, kroda. Right? Free from attachment, fear, and anger. This person is called a sage of steady mind. Right? The Bhagavad Gita is loaded with verses like this, telling us what the consciousness looks like of a real devotee. Right? And this is a very good one to think about. Right? I'm not upset when difficult things are happening. Hey, these things happen to me, but I don't get all lost in it. I stay steady. Something good happens. Someone's saying something nice about me. I don't get all caught up and lost in that and puffed up, or, somebody says something not so nice about me. I know that's the way the material energy works, right? The knowledge, the jnana, is the material world is always shifting. That's part of the nature of the material world. It's constantly shifting. Chanchalam, moving, shifting. But the knowledge of the self is that I'm never shifting, that I'm steady. So if my mind can become more like the self instead of like the external energy, then my mind will be peaceful, even though something nice or something not nice is happening. Okay. Now that term, Vita, Raga, Bhaya, Kroda, free from attachment, fear, and anger. We're going to hear that exact same phrase in another verse, text 410. And this verse is practically the whole 5 stages that I mentioned are mentioned here. Text 410, Vita Raga Bhaya Kroda Manmaya Mamupashritaha Bahavo Jnana Tapasa Puta Madbhavam Agataha. Being freed from attachment, fear, and anger. Being fully absorbed in me. There's an absorption, right? And taking refuge in me. Many, many persons in the past became purified by knowledge of me. And thus they all attained transcendental love for me. This is Krishna speaking, right? He's saying that with knowledge, we have to become free of attachment, fear, and anger, right? Attachment, fear, and anger. And then we become deeply absorbed in thinking of Krishna, thinking of Krishna's name, thinking of Krishna's form, thinking of Krishna's qualities, and thinking of Krishna's pastimes. These are the meditations of the bhakti yogis. Guna, Rupa, Nama, Lila, these 4. So again, they're
Ну вот Каустубха Прабху предупреждал, там бывают проблемы, у него сказал, что если прервется, то надо подождать, он сейчас переключится как-то. Всем хорошо слышно? Харе Кришна, да? Может, кто-то покажется, кто у нас тут еще есть? Может, просто... Кто хочет что-то сказать, может? Аня, Харе Кришна.
Слышно хорошо.
Харе Кришна. Слышно очень хорошо.
Аня, у тебя вопросы, наверное, есть?
Нет.
Всегда есть вопрос.
Нет вопросов, но я хотела предложить, что, возможно, не отказываться от предложения прорекламировать Interifast так быстро на Wisdom of the Sages. Возможно, вместо того, чтобы говорить «нет», можно сказать «rain check» и потом попросить на Interifast.
Классная идея, на самом деле.
Я думаю, да.
Прабху, по-моему,
У
вернулся.
вас you muted. Prabhu, you're muted.
Sorry about that. I think we're going to be okay now. I think I got on another internet connect, my personal hotspot thing. So I think I should be okay now, hopefully. Okay, so what was I talking about? Vita. Oh yeah. Okay, so on verse 410, I was saying that there's a term used here. It says Vita Raga Bhaya Kroda Manmaya Mamupashitaha Bahavo Jnana Tapasa. Jnana means knowledge. Tapasa. It can mean like austerity. It can also mean like heat or like fire. And so Jnana Tapasa, by going through the Jnana Tapasa, by going through the fire of knowledge, that knowledge can transform into wisdom. It can transform into this level of consciousness that's gone beyond theoretical and gone to deeply realized. And what that means is that when we say Jnana Tapasa, it means reflecting on the knowledge that we've heard as we go through life. I'll talk about that more in a bit. But to me, I really feel this is like the essential, the heart of the practice that I really need to practice. That as I go through challenges in life, I have to think about what I've heard from Bhagavad Gita, what I've heard from Srimad Bhagavatam, what I've heard from great devotees. I need to reflect on it in that moment so that the impressions in my mind get changed, so that I start to respond to things in a different way. Right? But first, let me describe a bit more about how I understand first attachment, fear, and anger quickly, but then especially what are the qualities of this sage of steady mind. Now, when we talk about, this attachment, fear, and anger, that means understanding how the material energy affects my consciousness and makes me forgetful of my true nature, right? My true nature is that I'm eternal. So where should there be any fear? If I'm experiencing fear, it means I haven't fully realized my eternal nature. And anger and attachment, these arise out of a lack of understanding that by nature, I'm blissful. That the happiness that I'm looking for in this world will not be found in anything external, but will be found within. When I settle my mind and I focus my mind and I reconnect to God, I'll experience my own true nature. And then I will stop chasing happiness in all its external forms, right? So attachment, fear, anger, attachment means to overcome attachment, we need to realize and contemplate that material attachment brings pain. We just have to examine that and realize that whatever I get attached to, that's a material thing, in the end, it brings pain. Whereas material detachment brings relief, right? And so when I'm experiencing pain, I need to identify what is the material attachment that's causing me the pain. And that's called Jnana Tapasa, reflecting on what I've heard so that it will, rather than complaining, which is what we tend to do, right? Something not nice happens, we complain, we blame, we rationalize, we justify, our own attachments, rather than saying, I feel pain right now. the fact that I'm feeling pain means that I've become disconnected with my own spiritual nature. Let me understand the cause of this pain. It has to do with my own material attachment. Let me clearly identify it. Let me recognize it. Let me let go, right? A little bit more if I can right now. Let me, through this process of reflection, let me let go. You know? Now take fear. Why should we experience fear? If I'm experiencing fear, it means I'm out of touch with the knowledge that God is always with us, that God is supporting everything, right? We think something is unstable, and so we're feeling fear. But we have to realize that God is behind everything at every moment. That even my own ability to eat, to digest my food, that to lift this pen or to speak is all being provided by God, and God is always within my heart. And Krishna will say that everything in this universe is resting on him like pearls are strung on a thread. But I get confused and I see the movements of the material energy and I don't see God behind it. And I become fearful. So I need to contemplate this more deeply, you know. And with anger, you know, the issues that we perceive as very important in life are often very insignificant. Our happiness lies within. It's not in all these external things that make us angry. You know, we become disturbed by things. We think it's a big deal. I've been insulted, right? I'm not being treated fair. All these different kind of things, you know, sometimes they're so insignificant, but to us, they appear huge, you know. What was it? There's a story that, it's a story that goes way back in the history of Vaishnavism to one disciple of a guru who was in, I believe he was in Sri Rangam, this beautiful temple in South India. And he asked his guru, can you tell me what are the qualities of a true Vaishnava? And his guru said, oh, well, if you really want to know the answer to that, I can tell you a great sage to go to, but he lives in Kanchipuram. So that's like, you know, I don't know how far Kanchipuram is, but hundreds of miles away. And so he began to walk. You know, this is what people did, you know, before their cars and before their planes and trains and when their spiritual life was their priority. Well, just to get the answer to this question, what are the qualities of a real Vaishnava? I'm willing to walk for weeks or months if necessary. And so he does that. He walks and walks through jungles and you know, and he finally arrives after a very long time. And he sees the sage that he's supposed to speak to. He's like a big, important guru. And he said, you know, my guru has sent me to you with a question. And he says, well, that's very good, but right now I need you to do something. And he started engaging him in doing service. And weeks went by, months went by, you know, before, because he had such reverence for this person. He says, I'll deal with your question, but first, you know, when I'm ready, but first I need you to do this, I need you to do that. And he just began to serve. And he was there for weeks and months, just serving without knowing, having the faith that this guru would say to him, okay, now what is your question? Without becoming upset, this isn't fair. I walked all this way. Why doesn't he take my question? He was patient. And then one day he was serving out a big feast to like all the devotees. And after he had just finished serving, the guru came up and said, you have a question? And he said, yes. What are the qualities of a Vaishnava? And he said, a Vaishnava is like a crane, a rooster, what is it again? A crane, a rooster, a salt, and you. And then he just walked away. He said, a crane, a rooster, salt, and me. I don't get it. I walked all this way here. I patiently waited. I served. And then I finally got to ask my question, but I don't understand the answer. He didn't become upset. He didn't become angry. He knew that there must be some great wisdom to this, but he didn't have the key to unlock it. So then he walked all the way back. And then he saw his guru again after some time. So now he's invested weeks, months, just in trying to hear the answer to this question. And then he saw his guru, and the guru said to him, did you get the answer to your question? He said, yes, but I don't understand it. Well, what's the answer? He said, well, I had served out this big feast to everyone. Because when he was serving that feast, he was serving everyone in such a way that he didn't even worry if he got fed himself. He just wanted to make all the devotees happy. If you've ever had to serve a feast before, and sometimes it's like, oh my God, it's like it's getting low. I don't know if there's going to be any left for me. But he wasn't thinking that way. He was just thinking, I just want to make everybody here happy. So his guru said, so what happened? Well, I served out this feast, and it's coming to the end of it. And then he asked me if I had a question. So I asked the question, and he said, a Vaishnava is like a crane, a rooster, salt, and me. And then his guru said, oh, what an excellent answer. Yes, I'm so glad you went. It was worth it. You got the right answer. And he said, well, what does it mean? So he went through each one of them, and he said, like a rooster, if I remember this correctly, it's kind of like a rooster, like they eat seeds. But sometimes where they get those seeds, like seeds sometimes pass through the body, right? You eat a seed and it comes out the other end. And so roosters will find, little seeds in the stool of other animals, and they'll pick that seed out and they'll eat it. And so a rooster can find, even it'll find something valuable and nourishing, even in a place that's not so nice. So a Vaishnava can always find some wisdom and always find some truth and always find some value, even in places that other people can't find it there. And then he said, salt is, he said, because salt, it makes everything taste better. A meal without the salt, it doesn't taste good at all. It's so important. It's serving such an important, crucial role. But it expects absolutely no glorification, right? It's happy to be in the background doing its service. It doesn't need to be praised. Because nobody, when they eat a meal, they may say, oh my God, the saffron in this is so subtle and delicious, or the sugar makes this all taste so good, or some other spice they may glorify, the basil in this tastes so delicious, but nobody says, oh, the salt in this is so good, right? So the salt just serves, it doesn't get any praise, but it's so important, and it makes everything else better, right? It uplifts everything else. So he said a Vaishnava is like that. And when he said it's because the way that you served, right? In a selfless way, not worrying about yourself, but just caring for the Vaishnavas, that a Vaishnava is like that. But the crane, and this is the one that I wanted to talk about. He said the crane stands in the water in a stream. And you've all seen cranes, how they stand, they get up on one leg and they just kind of stand there. And so he said that the crane, it looks down and it watches all the little fish swim by. One little fish goes by, second little fish goes by, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. It just waits, just standing there on one leg, patiently waiting. Every little fish, it just lets go by. It's waiting. What is it waiting for? It's waiting for the big fish to come. It doesn't waste its time with the small fish. It waits, it waits, it waits. And when the big fish comes, boom, it grabs the big fish. So in a similar way, we should understand what's important in life and what's unimportant in life. What is a waste of our time? And all of these things in life that come and go, they're all just a little fish. I once was talking to Radha Swami, and we were talking about different issues, different problems, different things, different conflicts, this and that, and so on. And he said, these are all just like these little fish. They go by. We just have to not get caught up in them. We have to not get disturbed by them. We have to not allow ourselves to let our consciousness get all caught up in this. We just have to focus on the big fish, not the little fish. And then he looked at me and said, and in truth, the only big fish is Radha and Krishna. That's all there is. So I thought, yeah, that is so wise, right? So in any case, we become angry about things, So this sage, he becomes free from attachment, fear, and anger. Now let's look at what are the qualities of some of the qualities in the Bhagavad Gita that are the qualities of the sage of steady mind, that are the qualities that arise, and that are the qualities that are repeated again and again and again in the Bhagavad Gita that we ignore, right? Sometimes we're like, I've been chanting for so long, but I'm not absorbed in it. What am I going to do? And we either complain about that or lose faith, or maybe we go to like a, and I think these are very important, so I'm not putting this down. We might go to like a seminar on chanting, you know, and or a retreat to learn some good habit. And I think that's really important. But this is my point, is that if we don't become a sage of steady mind, if we don't go from the stage of duty and knowledge up to wisdom, then how are we ever going to absorb the mind, even if we have the right techniques? Right? So we really have to change our whole consciousness, you know, that's our work as bhakti yogis. So let me read these 3 terms that are found in the Bhagavad Gita that are repeated often in the Bhagavad Gita, like at least the themes. One is called samatvam, S-A-M-A-T-V-A-M, samatvam. Samatvam means even-mindedness through both the pleasant and the unpleasant things in life, right? And we've talked about that a little already. Whether something's happening that's nice and pleasant or whether it's unpleasant, my mind remains the same. Praise and blasphemy. Honor, dishonor. Hot, cold. Success, failure. You know, these kind of things. That if I have the knowledge and I've matured that knowledge and thought about it and reflected on it enough, that I not only know that the material world is shifting and always changing, but I've deeply imbibed that truth so deep that when pleasant things happen, I say, well, that's the way it comes, but it's going to go soon too. And when unpleasant things happen, I say, yeah, it's unpleasant, but this is the way the material world works. It goes up and down. I'm expecting it's going to go up and down. So why should I be going up and down? That's called samatvam. Right. Krishna is going to speak about this again and again and again and again in the Bhagavad Gita, but I think sometimes we don't think that we have to do that. You know, that we don't think that all of the power of bhakti practices, we have to realize they're not going to fully open up until we try to become more like this. And the more that we become like this, the more that they're going to open up to us. So samatvam, even-mindedness. The next one is called samadarshana. Sama again means even, and darshana means vision. So samadarshana means that I see the Atma and the Paramatma in every living being. Right? Really thinking about that. Really meditating on that. As we move through life, concentrating on that, praying daily that this realization will come more clear, more present, that I see every living being. When I look at them, I see the body as a temple of God. I see Paramatma is there within them, and I see Atma is there. That within them there's an Atma that is of the exact same quality of me, that just as I'm covered by the material energy and confused by the material energy, they are also. So they're just like me. We are both sparks of eternality, knowledge, and bliss, trapped in material bodies. And also within that body, within me and within them, is the Paramatma, is God. And both the consciousness of both is spread throughout that body. That's called samadarshana. I see whether it be, you know, a person that's very attractive, or a person that's not attractive, a person that's kind to others, a person that's cruel to others, an animal, a pleasant, sweet animal like a little baby deer, or the cockroach, you know, or the mosquito, or whatever it be, and every plant as well. That wherever I see there's birth, growth, reproduction, maintenance for some time, dwindling or disease and death, that the Atma is there, that the Paramatma is there right with it. And also understanding that Paramatma is everywhere and is supporting everything within every atom, right? Or even you could say that Paramatma is within every atom that builds this universe, and every universe is within Paramatma. And that's part of the mystery of Krishna and his glories, right? So that I'm seeing Krishna everywhere at all times. And Krishna is training Arjuna in this type of vision. You know, when he says, I'm the light of the sun, I'm the light of the moon, I'm the taste in water, I'm there in the syllable Om, I'm, you know, all of this is so that we see Krishna everywhere. So the wise person, the sage of steady mind, samadvam, their even-mindedness through both pleasant and unpleasant experiences. They have this samadarshana now, that they feel the presence of God, the Paramama, within themselves and within every living being. And they see the Atma and the Paramatma within every living being. And then finally, anta sukhaha, that they derive their happiness from within. They don't need this television show. They don't need these clothes. They don't need this car. They don't need this weather. They don't need to be in this place or that place. They don't need to be treated a certain way or glorified in a certain way. They know, they feel happy from within because their happiness is no longer attached to anything external. So there's a happiness that is their true nature that's coming out. Anta sukhaha. That's a sage of steady mind, that they have this, that they, especially, it begins with this samadvam, that they're not disturbed by any external things. They're not elated by external, they're even-minded. Samadarshana, seeing God everywhere, seeing God within every living being, understanding the Atma within every living being. And anta sukhaha, they derive their happiness from within. Okay. Now I'm going to stop right here. And I've said that we need to go from duty, which anyone can do, to knowledge, which anyone can learn, to wisdom, the sage of steady mind, where we move through. You see, you put a gun to my head and say, don't be disturbed by anything external. I can't do that. You put a gun to my head and say, do this duty. I can do it. You put a gun to my head and say, learn this knowledge right now. I can do it. But you can't put a gun to my head and I can't suddenly become even-minded. I can't suddenly see God everywhere. You know, I can't suddenly have happiness arise. That's something that I have to work on. That's something that I have to make the priority of my life, and every single day pray that it arises in me. And this is, again, the jnana tapasa. I need to contemplate this as I go through the struggles in life. If I feel attachment, if I feel fear, if I feel anger, I have to reflect on the knowledge so that my mind becomes accustomed to seeing it in a different way. And when we have that, then we call that the jnana chakshusa. I'm seeing through the eyes of knowledge. And that's the sage of steady mind. If I can achieve that state of consciousness, which the Bhagavad Gita is telling me I need to do again and again and again, then absorption opens up, where the name, form, qualities, and pastimes of Krishna transform me in a powerful way, and then divine love can come. All right. So now that's a summary of what I've been speaking about. Are there any questions or any thoughts that anybody would like to share at this point?
Hari.
Yes, Prabhu.
Such a profound explanation, Prabhu. Simple and deep. Thank you so much for this. Prabhu, thank you so much for taking us through all these phases of spiritual upliftment. I find that, there is a natural course of development, but we can also understand that on some stages, somehow or other, someone could get kind of stumble upon some, kind of got stuck, without understanding, because basically everything is available, right? So we can say that duty, knowledge, absorption, like basically everyone can get some kind of concept of each of these 5 stages. So I would like to ask you about the duty. In my understanding, of course, duty is probably the first stage, the first basic principle one can take, and without following, fulfilling the duty or responsibility, one cannot get anywhere. I understand that sometimes we have a different motivation behind it. For example, it's very easy to fix your mind on if you have some clear goal in your life, then you know you have your own duty, you follow it. Sometimes spiritual seekers, like I would say, or devotees, we tend to think that my own practice That's the basic of my spiritual advancement. And we compromise understanding of our relationship. So, for example, I can think, I can follow some responsibilities or duties because it's good for me. But at the same time, in one point, I can just decide, I don't need to follow it because it's good for me. Like, for example, some people might be, like, okay, I'm strictly following, let's say, I'm avoiding, let's say, intoxications. But because I'm doing this for myself, it's kind of selfish, what I mean, But so in one point, I can just decide, okay, I'm not following anymore. So in my understanding, that duty, though its initial stage, it could be also getting more mature as one advances on the spiritual path. And it's more linked or connected to someone else, because duty or responsibility is always in relationship to someone, right?
Yeah.
So we take duties in front of our spiritual master, or we take duties in relationship to our, like family members. So I understand that, unique, how to say, methodology of bhakti is ultimately about relationship. So I can follow all the stages and become steady, like a sage of steady mind. But if I do it on, kind of for selfish purpose, it may not make me successful. So ultimately, in one point, if I'm selfish by nature, like, then, but in one point, I need to realize it. So even all these 5 stages, they finally have to open my heart to other people to start, kind of dealing with, let's say, other souls and super soul within everyone's heart. So could you kind of relay, kind of speak from this point in regards, like if we build community, or we try to like communicate and to collaborate with each other on the path of devotion, how, this kind of understanding can properly be, how to say, installed, let's say, in our understanding. I mean, I'm sorry, maybe I'm not so clear in my explanation, but I hope you understood.
I'll try to take something from it, and because you said a lot, but I think I understand where you're coming from.
Thank you.
And I think if I understood correctly, well, you were speaking on a couple different points, but one of them had to do with relationships. And you see, my understanding is like this, that when we meet a sage of steady mind, particularly one that's practicing bhakti yoga, that person is like nobody that we've ever met before, because they're not relating to us on a material level anymore, but they're relating to us on a spiritual level. And that means that, like, it's a great challenge for us is to not relate to people on the basis of the body. For instance, you find somebody physically attractive. It's hard for lust not to enter into that. And I behave differently with this person based on where someone that I find less attractive, I behave with in a different way. Somebody is from my country or from my town or from my gender or from my, and I relate to them in a way that's very different than I would to another person. When I can relate, when those things, you see, even if I'm practicing, again, like I said, as a monk, I was given duties. Like, this is how you relate with women, right? As a monk, there was very clearly laid out. It was like minimized. It was respectful, but business-like in a sense, right? Like no flirting or no talking. Just like, if there's a purpose, then take care of it. Be respectful, be nice, but then, but it was limited like that. And there's a value in that. But generally we're moving around this world without well, let me say this. And it's one thing to be able to follow that and be respectful, but it's another thing when you can, if someone has let go of the idea that when I see, like say a man sees the body of a beautiful woman, and there's some, even if he's decided I'm not going to pursue that, still there's some kind of egoistic kind of thing going on in the back and forth, right? But the sage of steady mind, he's let go of that. He sees that body as that's Krishna's energy. That's not where my happiness comes from, right? Or even in the subtleties in the back and forth, my happiness comes from within. I've already realized that. I've realized the folly in pursuing that other kind of happiness. And I also don't judge this attractive person, this unattractive person, this person that's American, or this person that's Russian or Ukrainian or Kazakhstani. Is that how you say it? It's Kazakhstani? Would that be the term? Okay, Kazakhstani or whatever it might be. That I identify with everyone on the spiritual level. So when I see that way, and I feel Krishna in my heart, and I feel Krishna in their heart, I'm aware. I'm not forgetting that for a moment. Then I relate on a level of consciousness that's so much higher. And that is very kind. Or you could even say very loving. And when people feel that, they feel like I've never met a person like this before in my life. You know, when I was younger, sometimes my senior monks would take me to a place called Mamgachi. Have you ever been there before? Koshorani, have you been there before? No?
Yeah, they give this mango tree grows, right? Mamgachi. I think
Mamgachi? It's not what it's known for. It's to get there from Mayapur, you have to go on a boat for about 40 minutes or so. Yeah, but there's certainly the mango trees there, and they have the langur monkeys are running around there.
The Jaidev Goswami's place?
Jaidev Goswami. Okay. I believe Jaidev, but there's a temple there where they have the deities of Vishwanath Chakravarti, of Vrindavan Das Thakur. Mm-hmm. And when you go into that temple, now this man has passed away, but his name was Jagat Bandhu. Mm-hmm. When I met him, and this was, going back 20 years, 25 years, he was in his 80s then. And when he was like 8 years old, his guru said, you should stay in this temple and just be the pujari for the temple and never leave. And that's exactly what he did. He just stayed there in this very holy place, a very quiet place, a very forgotten place. Like, not too many people go there. People go there, but it's he didn't go to Calcutta. He didn't pursue marriage. He didn't pursue anything except this seva to his guru and to Krishna. And when you would walk in the door, now he didn't speak English. I don't speak Bengali. He didn't know me, but he would greet me, and not only me, but anybody that walked through that door. He would greet them. You could see it. It wasn't fake. He was so happy, like his best friend, who he hadn't seen in many years, had come back to him. And his heart would just be like, please, like in America, someone shows up at your door. Right? So what are you doing here? Why are you disturbing me? Get off my property. When you walk into this man, it doesn't matter who it is. He'd be like, oh, he couldn't speak English, but he communicated so much. I'm so happy that you're here. Please come. Please see Krishna in the temple here. Then he would lay out these mats. And basically they were just like, how in India, the rice comes in a burlap bag, burlap, that rough cloth. He just had mats that were old rice bags. And he would lay them down for you to sit on. And then he would say, wait here, just stay here. And then he would run to the garden and start picking vegetables. And he'd run into his kitchen. And the kitchen was just a hole in the ground with like wood. And he would light the wood on fire. And he had these old dented pots. He would start cooking for you. Then he'd come and feed you, And then if someone there knew Bengali, he would start to tell stories and so on. His stories were amazing. He had stories like, because they have the langur monkeys there, which are the big, powerful, beautiful monkeys with big, long tails. And he would talk about how he hurt his back every day he would walk. I don't know how far it was, but it's probably like a quarter of a mile to the Ganges River. And he would carry water all the way back for the deities, but he hurt his back. So the monkeys took the buckets and they would come and bring the water. Or he said one day he was looking for his Bhagavad Gita. He couldn't find it anywhere. And then he looked and he saw that the monkeys, one of them had the Bhagavad Gita and the others were there. And one monkey was giving class to the other monkeys. But my point is that I could see that this man, his name is Jagat Bandhu, which means the friend of the universe. And I could see that he actually became like that.
I remember him actually. In 1996, I remember that was the first time when I took part in the Navadip Mandal Parikrama.
Yeah.
His Holiness Jayapataka Swami was speaking about him, and that he was like, at that time he was over 90 years. He was 90 years old, and he dedicated whole his life. He was standing in the same place, worshiping Gaur Nitai.
Yeah. In other words, I don't need happiness like sex. I don't need happiness like money, to have a fancy house, to go to Calcutta and see what exciting things are going on, television. I don't need any of this to be happy. I'm happy just in this very quiet place. It means that was that antasukha. So my point is, if we come to this level of Stita Dir Muni, we begin to relate with people in such a way that they feel touched, they feel understood, they feel, I've met someone so special, someone so kind. Now listen, now I want to read a few verses. And these are verses that they help us understand a little bit about samadvam, about this even-mindedness, and what goes along with that even-mindedness. And these are very beautiful verses that come in the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna begins to describe the kind of person that is very dear to Krishna. And we'll see that the person that's very dear to Krishna is the sage of steady mind. Okay? But it'll play out more about what that looks like here. So I'm beginning on text 13. It goes from text 13 until the end of the chapter, which is text 20. All right? So now if you want to become dear to Krishna, this is what we need to become more like. He says, one who is not envious, but is a kind friend to all living entities. Not some, but they're a kind friend to all living entities. Who does not think himself a proprietor. This is mine, right? And is free from false ego. Who is equal in both happiness and distress. That's called samatvam, right? Who is tolerant, right? How do we become tolerant? We're not caught up in the small fish. We're only focused on the important stuff, right? I can tolerate any little thing. It's the little thing. Why should I get upset about this? Who is tolerant, always satisfied, right? Because I got that antasukha, happiness from within. Self-controlled and engaged in devotional service with determination, their mind and intelligence fixed on me. Such a devotee of mine is very dear to me. That one verse, right? That was two verses, 13 and 14. There's our life mission right there, right? Text 15. He by whom, think about this. Just think about this, right? And Prabhu, you were talking about relationships and how we relate to one another. This is what the Stita Dir Muni, the sage of steady mind, this is how they move through the world. He by whom no one is put into difficulty, right? Let me move through this world without disturbing anyone, right? He by whom no one is put into difficulty and who is not disturbed by anyone, who is equipoised again, samatvam, who is equipoised in happiness and distress, fear and anxiety, is very dear to me. Right? Now, if you there's one verse that's so important to us that is said that we should take this verse and tie it around our neck and carry it with us at every moment. Right? It's the verse that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said is our Siddha Pranali, is our path to perfection, is how all of Krishna Prema opens up to us. And that verse is Trinada pi sunichena tador iva suhishnuna amanena manadena kirtanaya sadahari. Now think about this verse. One must be more tolerant than a tree, more humble than a blade of grass. One should be willing to offer all respects to others and expect no respect for themselves. I don't need to be glorified. I don't need to be I'll do my service. I'm happy within, right? So humble, tolerant, very respectful to all others, and not expecting anything for oneself. What comes from that? What do you get from that? What is the gift that you get, the fruit? What is it by adopting that kind of life? Because here this said, they put no one into difficulty, but they're not disturbed by anyone, right? I'm not going to disturb anyone, and I won't be disturbed by anyone. I offer all respect to others, and I expect no respect for myself. Right? What do you get from that? Kirtaniya Sadahari. In that state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. One can absorb their mind in the holy name and feel such transformation and such satisfaction that I can do it always. I don't become bored. I don't become distracted, right? Because I've been humble, tolerant, respectful, not wanting anything for myself. So that's where I say this stage of steady mind, absorption opens up to them. And through absorption, that's where the love comes. That's where all the verses in the Shikshastakam that come after that verse. That was one of the 8 verses that Lord Chaitanya wrote called the Shikshastakam. So after that verse, it's all love of God, right? It's all separation and intense levels of love for God. Because once you can absorb your mind in the holy name, then that love will start to manifest quickly, But our problem is that long step. There's duty and knowledge, but then to get from knowledge to wisdom. To me, that's what this life is about. That's what this, how am I going to get there? What do I have to learn to tolerate? What do I have to learn to let go of? What do I have to see as it's just a small fish? Let it go. To me, that's so much of our practice lies right there. We could chant I do chant my 16 rounds every day. But I know that they're going to open up to me in ways that they don't now when I can become more like this. So he says, he by whom no one is put into difficulty and who is not disturbed by anyone, who is equipoised in happiness and distress, fear and anxiety is very dear to me. My devotee, who is not dependent on the ordinary course of activities. It's supposed to be like this. Who is pure, expert, without cares. I'm not getting this. It's fine. I'm okay. No problem. Free from all pains, and not striving for some result is very dear to me. One who neither rejoices nor grieves, samatvam, who neither laments nor desires, and who renounces both auspicious and inauspicious things. Meaning, like, auspicious and inauspicious mean like something good happening to me, something bad happening to me. I'm not attached either way. I got some money, I lost some money, I'm okay either way. Such a devotee is very dear to me. One who is equal to friends and enemies. This is true samadarshana, right? Even though this person's been my enemy, I see the soul, I see Krishna in them, samadarshana. I see all living beings equally. One who is equal to friends and enemies, who is equipoised in honor and dishonor, heat and cold, happiness and distress, fame and infamy, who is always free from contaminating association, always silent and satisfied with anything, who doesn't care for any residence, who's fixed in knowledge, and who is engaged in devotional service, such a person is very dear to me. And now the last verse. Those who follow this imperishable path of devotional service, like that, and who completely engage themselves with faith, making me their supreme goal, they're very, very dear to me, Krishna says. Right? So it's like every day we should be reading this and thinking about this and recommitting ourselves to this, right? As I move through the world, do I disturb the minds of others? And when I do it, do I justify it, rationalize it? Or am I really trying to become more sensitive? Am I really trying to become more like this? You know, that person that's so dear to Krishna. What do I need to do to change? And, you know, a lot of that has to do with going from the progression. It's something, again, that we'll find in the Gita. There's a progression in the depth of this that goes from body to words to mind. That the control has to go from body, that our level of conquering this goes from the level of body to words to mind. For instance, now let's talk about this jnana tapasa, this fire of knowledge, which is going to take us from knowledge to wisdom. And how do we do that again? Jnana tapasa means we're going to reflect on the knowledge that we've heard. People here aren't all from New York, right? They're from all over the country. Is that right?
Most of them from New York, but some.
Okay. So then for the New Yorkers, this will be relatable. For others, similar things are there. I'm stepping onto the subway, right? As I'm stepping onto the subway, someone bumps into me in a way that I felt was not very considerate. Okay? Now, in my mind, or I'm sorry, in my body, if I'm not controlled, I may respond with my body. I push them, right? Hey, get out, leave. Watch where you're walking. That means I have very little control, right? Of myself, of my mind and my body. You know, I'm out of control. I'm not at all like what Krishna just mentioned, right? I'm demanding respect. You know, I'm disturbed by others, et cetera, et cetera. I'm intolerant. So many of the things that he mentioned there, I'm not manifesting at all. And it means that when I sit down to chant my japa, that kind of mind will not be able to go deeply absorbed. But after hearing this from Bhagavad Gita, I'm thinking a little deeper now. I'm thinking, I need to control myself a little bit more. How will I get there? What do I need to contemplate to get there? Let me not see this person as my enemy. Now this is the knowledge. This is the jnana. This is what comes from Gita. This is what comes from Bhagavatam. This is what, at this moment, just right now, bumped on the subway, I'm going to enter into the jnana tapasa, the fire of knowledge, and I'm going to reflect on what I've heard so that it will become more deeply realized. That within the body of this person is a soul that is Satchidananda, that is eternal, blissful, you know, full of knowledge, that is as dear to Krishna as I am, right? And it's when both of us come out of this illusion that we're in. That person is going through their own struggles in life, just as I am. Just as I am prone to respond in ways that aren't so thoughtful, this person is in that same, is the same. And on top of that, this is jnana, whatever misery comes to me in life, whatever discomforts or pains come to me in life, I've earned them through my past behavior. That's how the law of karma works. So whatever I'm getting coming this way, I can just basically thank Krishna that it's not worse because I deserve worse. So let me reflect on this right now and not for a moment allow my mind to see this person like an enemy, because I know that this is all just the material energy moving things. And I know there's a pure soul, and Krishna within the heart of that person right now. So I'm not going to respond with my body and push this person. Okay? But maybe my control and my contemplation is not deep enough that although I'm controlling my body, I still have to say something, right? So I'm controlling body, but I still can't control my words. So I'm like, watch it, you know, or whatever, you know, I would say to that person. So I'm controlling my body, but that I need to reflect on it more, right? I need to go deeper. I need to, maybe the first time it happens to me on the subway, I control my body, I reflected, but I wasn't able to control my words. But the 10th time, you know, I say to myself, I let that little fish, that small little incident stick in my mind. And when I sat down on the subway, I spent the entire time thinking about that person and how inconsiderate they were. And it just polluted my mind for the next 15 minutes, right? I don't want to be controlled like this anymore. I want to become a yogi. I want to be able to control my mind and not be controlled by my mind. And it begins with controlling my body. And then comes controlling my words. So I felt like, I said, I'm not going to say it, right? So then I controlled body, then I controlled words, but it's still stuck in my mind. I still felt offended, right? Disturbed. That was unfair, the way that person treated me, right? But as we go through that fire of Jnana Tapasa, as we meditate on the truths of the Bhagavad Gita, when we get bumped on the subway, when someone at work doesn't treat us so nice, when there's a little conflict between husband and wife, when I'm a little worried that there's not enough money coming right now, when I get lots of money that I didn't even expect to happen, when this happens, that happens, all that we move through in life becomes opportunities for us to reflect on what. Now, in order to do this, we need to hear every day. We need to open up that Bhagavad Gita. We need to open up the Srimad, and every day. That's why this wisdom of the sages, that's why it's actually, we caught on to it, that we let these books sit on our shelves and we don't open them up. But when people start to read every day, it changes their lives. And that's why like this, people started catching on and they started listening to us like thousands of people, because they're realizing I need this every day, or I forget it, or I go off into the world and I'm totally out of touch with it. And I'm just like a leaf blowing in the wind. If a wind of disturbance comes and blows, I'm gone, right? I'm not steady. It's this hearing every day that will give us the power to reflect on it, right? Reflect on it throughout the day. Pleasant things, unpleasant things, the reflection is there. And through that, you see the mind, it just needs to be told the same thing again and again and again and again and again. And particularly, it opens up wide to it when we're in these circumstances. And if we tell ourselves this again, then we're going to go from being able to control our bodies to be able to control our words to the level of a real yogi who can control their mind. And when that person bumps into them, I don't bump them back. I don't say anything nasty. And even I don't carry it with me in my mind, but I just think like, oh, another soul, right? Another wandering soul like me. And Krishna's in my heart and Krishna's in their heart. And you know who witnesses this? Because maybe we want someone to recognize, oh, you really handled yourself really well there. You know, it's a lot easier to act like a pious person, you know, if someone's going to say, wow, that was really good. But the person that witnesses, maybe nobody witnesses it except one person. And that's God within our own heart. And we know that. And in this way, God knows it, we know it, and we're there alone with God, and we're deepening our own relationship. And that's the sage of steady mind. That their happiness, their recognition, their validity, you know, we feel the need to be honored and respected by it. No, I just need God. I just need God to validate my behavior, right? I just need to know that God is appreciating it. And if we have that faith, which will grow out of that reflection, then we'll grow very close to God. And we'll go, our meditation on God will go so much deeper. And when we chant that name, it's not just this syllables, but we're actually connecting with God. That's the sage of steady mind, you know. So that was a long answer to your question. I hope it helped in some way. You know, duty is first, because duty is going to help us be responsible and ultimately kind to others. That we put others' concern for others before concern for our own comforts, our own whims. That's duty. That's the beginning, you know. And if we're not doing that, we're going to be very weak when it comes to knowledge and what to speak of wisdom or what to speak of absorption. No, you know, it's like they're meant to come together. Therefore, these are called prescribed duties, right? And in our you know, in the Vedic system, that meant being a good Shudra, being a good Vaishya, being a good Kshatriya, being a good Brahmana, being a good Grihastha, Vanaprastha, Brahmachari, Sannyasi. And we can still take from that and learn from that and apply that. But even in the most simple way, it means being a good husband, being a good wife, being a good mother, being a good father, you know. And hopefully in our business world or in our economic, the way that we earn money, that we can do that in a way that's, although this world is very mixed and difficult, but that we can do it in a way that's hopefully the more honest and ethical, the better, you know. So being like that, you know, that this will be a platform from which we can begin to control the mind and then really cultivate that knowledge. And as I'm saying, then through reflecting on that knowledge, through all that we go through, it maturing to come. How long will it take for me to become a real sage of steady mind? Will I be there when I'm 50, when I'm 60, when I'm 70? Well, I hope so, right? I really hope so. I hope that when I'm an old man, I'm going to be like that. If not, I'm going to be like, I'm going to have to try harder the next time around, you know. But like when I'm 70 years old, I hope I'm totally like that, you know, like 100. I want to be like that. And I know that I'm not going to be if I'm not working on it hard right now. If I'm not hearing every day, hearing Bhagavatam, hearing Gita, hearing instructions from advanced devotees, and then trying to contemplate that in my life. And, you know, I had a big realization. I'll share a big realization with you all, okay? And that came from wisdom of the sages, because, you know, I think it used to be that like trying to share bhakti with others. Usually, we're finding young people like 20 years old, because we felt, well, they don't have any commitments, so they can kind of dedicate themselves to this more seriously and all that. But what I found now is people aged 35 to 45, they are very open to learning about bhakti and practicing bhakti because they've been through life. They've been married. Sometimes they've been divorced. They've had children. They've enjoyed the pleasures of raising children, and they've also experienced the anxiety of raising children. Sometimes the disappointment, sometimes even disaster, you know, tragedy. The struggles of relationships, again, the pleasures, but also the pain there, you know, and also the struggle in the workplace. I work in a place where I don't like the people. They're not kind. The atmosphere is not pleasant or nice at all. I wish I could work in a place where people treated each other nicely and there wasn't this vicious competition or this cruelty in the way people treat. So you're 40 years old and you've experienced a lot of this. And it gives you all of the things that the Bhagavatam are telling us about the material world, you've experienced it now. But at the same time, you're hoping that there's got to be something more. There's got to be something spiritual, something deep. So you're ripe for the wisdom of bhakti. And when you begin to hear it all in a way that you can understand it, then you take to it. And I'm seeing people do that. And I'm realizing that, you know, when I was a 21-year-old monk, I thought, well, this is the straight line. This is the fastest path, right? Don't get married, be a brahmachari, do this service 24 hours a day. And it's but the fact is that the knowledge may be there, but the wisdom may not come right? The wisdom may not come. So you could do that for years and years and years and not get the wisdom. Whereas if you've been through the pain and through the pleasures and the pain, you can go on a fast track to wisdom. You can't say, I believe that there's no happiness through this. You know, I've been, you know, I've gone through, I've had material life go up, I've had material life go down. And what I want now is God. What I want now is the happiness that's from within. What I want now is even mindedness through all. And when I hear this, I feel inspired and I'm grabbing it. I'm going at it very, you know, I have one friend. She was a friend of mine when we were kids. And I mentioned earlier that we were in this whole punk rock world of New York City back in the early 80s. And we were friends when she was 13 years old and I was 15 years old. And it was a wild city then, and she was a wild girl then. Fearless little 97-pound, you know, a punk rock girl. And when by the time I was 20, you know, I became a monk and I didn't see her again for decades. But after 25 years or something like that, we became friends on Facebook. And then at a certain point, and we had a little back and forth, but not much. But then one time she reached out to me and said, I'm reading Bhagavad Gita and I've been practicing yoga, and this Bhagavad Gita is really changing my life. And I said, oh, wow, you know, well, if you have any questions, I'm here for you. Just let me know. And then months went by. And then she wrote to me, she said, how does one find a guru? And I said, well, that's a big question. And then she wrote to me, can I talk to you? And so then we hooked up. I don't know if it was Zoom or Skype or whatever, but we could see each other talking. And it's, you know, you don't see a person for 30 years, so you don't know what you're going to, you never know what exactly it's going to be like. And I knew that she had been through heroin addiction and all kinds of struggles. But when we saw each other, the first thing she did, she started crying. And then she said, I don't know what's happening. I'm losing interest in everything but Krishna. And it's beautiful, but it's scary at the same time, and nobody understands me. and then she started to speak. And as she was speaking, I felt that the realizations that she was speaking with were so deep that it was almost like they were prayers of the Bhagavatam. The clarity in which she understood the material world and how it operates, and the pain that it causes, and how God is the only refuge, and how all I want is God, and the conviction that she was speaking with. Now, a couple years later, then her and I began to regularly go back and forth. And then she visited New York, and she wanted to speak with Radha Swami. So I introduced, we were in a room, just the three of us, and I was introducing, and I was telling Radha Swami, I said, Maharaj, we knew each other when we were kids. And then when I was 20, I went one way and she went the other way, and we didn't see each other. And I just became a monk and I followed strictly. And you know my life. She had a different path, and it went through heroin addiction and went through all kind of struggle and all this. But now when she speaks, it sounds to me like it's coming straight out of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And then what he said was, he said that this 12-step, that people that go through addiction and go through 12 steps, he said, this is very powerful spiritual practice. Right? When you hit that rock bottom and you realize I'm helpless and I need God, that it is a very, very powerful spiritual practice, and it's very real. And so the realization that I was making is getting to that point of wisdom, getting to the point where we reflect on knowledge so deep that we imbibe it deeply, and it matures into wisdom. That may come on this path or that path, but if we reflect on wisdom or on knowledge as we go through our struggles in life, it's a very powerful path. And when we become 50 years old, 60 years old, 70 years old, these material things are not going to mean anything to us anymore. And we're going to be able to absorb ourselves deeply in spiritual knowledge. and we're going to be able to see God within the heart of every living being and have deep faith that God is supporting us at every moment. Right? And then Krishna says, for that person who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, for that person, I preserve what they have and I carry what they lack. Right? We may not be the best yogis in the world, but if we could become just these Stita Deer Munis on some level, if we really try, and if we try to move through the world, just like those verses in the 12th chapter said, I don't want to disturb anyone, and I'm not going to be disturbed by anyone. I'm going to become tolerant. I'm going to become even-minded in honor and dishonor, heat and cold, happiness, distress, fame and infamy. I'm going to let go of all those little fish. I'm not going to get upset about them. I'm not going to be attachment, fear, anger. I'm going to let go of them all. And then when I go to chant that name, you know, we may be 70 years old, and for the first time in our life, that holy name is really starting to open up to us in a way that it never has before, because we've let go of everything. You know, and we know that just like Krishna is in the heart of every living being, Krishna is in this mantra. Krishna is this mantra. You know, I think that's how many, many devotees will go back to Godhead like that. You know, it's a lifetime of work. And as we advance and we let go of everything, then we really connect with that name. And we really connect with the Bhagavatam. And we really connect with the Vaishnavas. And we really connect with the Holy Dham. And we really connect with the deities. These 5 potent forms of the Bhakti. These 5 are listed in the devotion as very potent, powerful, transformational forms of bhakti. The holy name, the holy dham, the holy places, the Srimad Bhagavatam, the association of devotees, and what was the one that I missed? And the deities, worshiping the deities. That these will transform us, but they'll transform us especially powerfully when we become sages of steady mind. It'll open up, we'll become absorbed, and we'll become transformed. So that was mostly what I want to talk about tonight. I don't know if any of you have any questions or any comments that you'd like to share. I'd be very happy to hear anything that you all have to say.
I just would like to express my gratitude for this. It was really powerful. I had so many questions during your lecture, and like you answered it all. Like my main question was like, oh yeah, it's nice pictures that you're describing, but like our mind tells us like, oh, it's probably not for me. It's not in this lifetime. It's too high level and will not ever get to this level. And you gave really practical tools how to achieve it. And what I took for myself from your lecture, it's like to have this desire, the main point, to have this desire and to be steady and like to be patient and work on it every single day. It's really powerful. Thank you so much.
Let's all do it together. You know, like that's the thing. You know, you need good friends and people that understand that, hey, this is your goal and this is my goal. Let's help each other do this, you know, because we're going to have to work through all this rationalization that we have, all this justification. I'm angry about this. Don't you see? But isn't it reasonable that I'm angry? Well, let's take a look at it. You know, maybe you don't need to become angry right now about this. You know, maybe next time you won't become angry. Let's talk about it. And we help each other. You know, Raghunath and I, we're friends like that. You know, we've been friends over 30 years. And if I'm going through something, if he's going through something, we could talk about it. And we can share these things with each other. And we have an example in our life. We have many examples of life, but like for both of us, Radhanath Swami is really an example like that for us. That we know, like if he can say to me or I can say to him, well, how would Radhanath Swami deal with this? You know, would he get upset about this? Would he say this or say that or say, no, of course he wouldn't. Okay, well, we know that's what we're trying to become like. And so then we just say, okay, yeah, you know, that we're meant to get beyond this. We're meant to move past this, and we let go. And so like this, we help each other. So these friendships are really important, you know, that we do it together. So like a lot of us are at the Bhakti Center, we can hopefully learn to support each other in this, or nowadays you have really good facilities like you have here tonight, and so many other online things like this. We have got Wisdom of the Sages again. If anyone would like to come and be part of that wisdom, we're not doing it tomorrow. We do it almost every single day. But Raghunath got a little sick the other day, so we took a few days off. But we'll be back Sunday morning. And so if you want to come and listen to that, it's just another way of like every day, Nityam Bhagavata Sevya, that we really do need to hear this every day, and we need to reflect on it every day. And if we do that, it's going to work. It really does work. So thank you so much for this opportunity. I enjoyed spending the evening with you all. Is this group called something in particular?
Well, this is our New York Russian Sangha group. We do also have a kind of North American leaders, ISKCON leaders, Russian speaking.
Yeah.
And like yesterday, we had His Holiness Bhakti Vigyan Swami Maharaj. He gives us one seminar. So we do sometimes, we invite.
He's a great soul.
Yeah, actually, the story how actually he got involved here.
With you?
Yeah,
With our group.
No.
We had very, very strong desire. Somehow we wanted to get Radhanath Swami to be more active with us. And also we tried to get Maharaj, but he was so busy in other places of the world. He had so many disciples. And so he denied quite a few times. And then it happened that, probably collective prayer works or something like that. And then
Okay.
met Radha Swami in Mayapur. And when he approached his guru and asking him about, anything, any service he could take up, Radha Maharaj told him to go to New York, to US and help us. And so everything was kind of arranged by divine providence.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much. I really enjoyed spending the evening with you, and happy if I can serve you in any way.
Yeah, thank you. It was very much enlivened evening, and we hope we can meet once again. We can have another maybe webinar or something like that. So we'll be in touch with you, and also like we really would like to take advantage. of your invitation. Now we can maybe join your group.
Oh, please do. You're all welcome to. Yeah. You, again, live, if you want to, you write to wisdomofthesages108@gmail.com, and they'll give you the Zoom password and meeting number. That's 5 a.m. on weekdays, 8 a.m. on weekends.
Mm-hmm.
Not tomorrow, though. Mm-hmm. And otherwise, Wisdom of the Sages on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and a lot of the other podcast platforms out there.
Mm-hmm.
There's I think we're at like almost 180 episodes now. So like people binge listen to it too, because we started on January 1st and we've done it we don't miss very many days. So there's like 179 was the last one or something like that. So when people get into it, then they can binge listen. It's really nice because we get a lot of people that say like, when I'm cooking, I listen every day. And then when we eat dinner, we talk about Bhagavatam. Or, when I'm driving to work, I listen to it every single day. Or when so it's easy like that. It's Raghunath's a lot of fun, and so he keeps it entertaining and there's a lot of humor. But again, we do try to go deep into the message, and we do try to really take Srila Prabhupada's purports and try to understand them and understand the significance of it all. And so it's kind of I think it's a right kind of balance of easy to listen to, but still, life-changing because it's the Bhagavatam.
Mm. Mm-hmm. I would like to ask any devotee, maybe anyone would like to say something, any feedback, any reflection, maybe a short question, I don't know.
Yeah.
Elena. Anya.
Sorry, I can't turn my camera anymore right now, but I just wanted to say thank you, and my questions were also kind of answered. Like Shorinani said, it's one of the questions that I had in the beginning was that I think in the very beginning you mentioned that happiness and suffering change like the times of the year in the material world. And after that, you said that whatever attachments you have, if you have the attachment, then the logical next step would be that you'll feel pain at some point. And so my question was like, okay, so just write it out. You know that the happiness is coming anyway, right? Because it's switching.
Yes.
So it's not that it's always ends up. But then you also gave the example of the woman, right, who came to this because she already experienced everything. And I kind of thought that maybe the pain at some point is just so much that you kind of feel that why bother? Why not just get out of here? Like, why bother with this small happiness when the suffering is coming anyway? Yeah.
This is when we meet truly wise people, they understand this, you know, that when everybody's upset, they're like, well, this is the way this world works. I already understand that. And so they can have that even-mindedness. And we all just need to become more like that. So yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate hearing.
Yes, thanks so much for coming out today.
My pleasure.
Hi, thank you so much for the story, especially the last one about about.
Lena, you got frozen.
No.
I think she fell in ecstasy.
Maybe.
It was like, you know, part of a spiritual practice. So that was really empowering to hear. That's maybe through suffering, you know, and I think that story will become part of stories I tell to people, because many people, you know, feel like they wasted their life and they said like, oh my God, my life was so like, you know, they feel guilt about their life. They feel so they say I wasted so much time, but at the end and they end up with such a powerful attachment to Krishna just because they went through this pain. So thank you for the story, and it's a great story, and it was great to hear that Maharaj told that it's part of spiritual practice. It was really, really important to hear me.
Thank you. You know, another part of that story is, so we started meeting like every week, you know, like on Skype, and I would just teach her some bhakti stuff, and she would share with me what she's practicing and what she should do and what she shouldn't do. And then her 50th birthday came up. And her husband asked me to write something. He was making some kind of special scrapbook kind of thing, putting together things from all different friends of hers. And so I wrote to her. And I wrote kind of on what you were just mentioning, that in the Vedic tradition, that when you're very young, you become a brahmachari, you go to the school of the guru, you get trained in all of this philosophy. But what do you know about life? You're young, you know, you don't know what money is, what sex is, what suffering is, what raising a family is, what you don't know any. The Shastra is telling you how to understand it all, and you're memorizing it, but you have knowledge, but you don't have wisdom, you know. And then you go through this period of marriage where you begin to play around with the things that yogis don't mess around with so much. Sex, you know, owning a house, having money, getting material comforts. All those things are potentially disastrous for one's yoga practice. And having the children and all the time and energy that it takes and earning the money. But what's happening is you have that knowledge that you learned when you're younger, and now you're seeing it all come to life, and you're still studying, and but you're beginning to, you're enjoying, and there's nothing wrong with it, enjoying the love of a family and the love of raising children and the love between husband and wife or whatever. But as you're going from, you know, and it's exciting and it's all rosy when you're 20 or whatever, but by the time you're 35 and you've gone through a lot of struggle with the kids and you've gone through some bumps in the marriage, you're realizing that there is joy here and there is pleasure here, but there's also suffering and there's also anxiety. And together we realize that there's something more, and that we want to, that's what we want to reach together. And that's the purpose of all this. So by the time you're 40, your kids have grown up, you know, they're making the money now, you retire. You begin to realize that it wasn't through sex, it wasn't through money, it wasn't through material gain that we find happiness. Now I have time to focus entirely on the spiritual life again. And so so when you hit 50, you've let go of sex, you've let go of money, you've let go of all material life. And at that age, you're ready to dedicate. And I said, and when I wrote to her, I said, you know, we went through different paths, but the fact is, you've hit that stage of 50 and you've already let go of all these things. You're right where you're supposed to be now. And you're hearing Bhagavatam every day and you're chanting every day and you're doing, so you're right where somehow you got to the point where you're supposed to be at when you're 50 years old. Meaning I've let go of all the material things and I'm fully dedicated to my spiritual life. Then you're right on track. Somehow you caught right back up, even though you had a life that was totally un-Vedic, you know? So yeah, it's a fact that all of those zeros in life, if we can put Krishna in front of them, they all become valuable. And whatever struggle, whatever pain, it can become a very valuable asset.
Thank you so much once again for the story.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else?
Hare Krishna, Kastubha
Hare
Prabhu.
Krishna.
Thank you again for such beautiful lecture and structural, like very well explained wisdom, your illustrative examples, and like basically also I guess my question was answered, but I want to make sure I understood it right. So while listening to you, I was thinking about one thing, like basically how to progress through those stages, 5 stages you mentioned at the beginning. And like even those first 2 stages, so like duty and knowledge, and the third one, even to come to the third one, wisdom, it requires dedication and constant practice and constant involvement into those stages, I would say. And you said it might be even life process. And when you are just at the beginning of this path, I was thinking, what can keep you engaged in this practice and don't be distracted by small fish, which is swimming around a lot, and our ego used to being distracted and being enjoyer and controller, and like we did it probably past many lifetimes. So it's very hard to switch to different route, right? And I was thinking, what can keep you on this path? And like you were explaining that it can be the crane, it can be like, or when you become a crane who is seeking for the big goal, or put the big goal in front of yourself. So, and ultimately it should become Krishna and Radha as your primary goal, which will inspire you. But then I was thinking, like, again, when you're at the beginning and you don't know much about Radha and Krishna, and you don't have this relationship built yet, you're just learning, you just become acquainted with Krishna. And I was thinking, yeah, like, it cannot really be the goal who will keep you, because it's also very weak yet. And I was thinking again, how, like, what can be this goal, or how this goal can still be your goal continuously. And so my answer was that I was thinking really for me what it can be, and I was thinking that spiritual teacher can be the one who can keep you inspired of that goal. And like, if you listen constantly of your teacher, then it's something that can lead you to that goal and keep that goal in front of you. And also then you mentioned, yeah, like association with devotees, reading, constant reading Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and what was else? I guess service, and what was the
We're
fourth
saying
one?
Bhagavatam and the Holy Dham and the Holy
right?
Name and the association of devotees.
So probably all of that is something
Deities.
can even on first stages can keep you on your path and help you progress, right?
Yeah, you
Or
know,
maybe
it's
even-
when you say learning from a devotee, and you know, it's hearing from them, right? They share transcendental knowledge. Now that verse, I read verse 4:10, which said, "Being freed from attachment, fear, and anger, being fully absorbed in me, and taking refuge in me. Many persons in the past became purified by knowledge of me, and thus they all attain transcendental love for me." And that being purified by transcendental knowledge of me means understanding who Krishna is. So the verse before this verse is a very famous one. And it is one who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities, does not upon leaving the body take birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. So we hear about Krishna from these people, from someone that's an advanced devotee. And that goal becomes clearer and clearer in the mind, you know, that we become fixed on that, I want the big fish, because I'm hearing about what is the nature of that, of that service, you know, of that connection. You know, one thing I wanted to point out too was that when I say knowledge and wisdom, not to think of these in like academic terms. You don't have to be super like a scholar. That's not what we mean here. Knowledge means to understand how the material world works and who am I and who is God, even in the simple way, right? Even if we just understand I'm spiritual and Krishna is my shelter, and this material world is always shifting and has me confused, and I need to learn to tolerate the shifting of the material energy and reconnect myself. That's knowledge, that's jnana. And when we not only know it theoretically, but when we know it deeply, that's wisdom. You know? So really, you know, we should all just have a strategy, you know, of how in this short lifetime, we will come to the stage of wisdom. We'll have an even and peaceful mind. We'll be tolerant. We'll be kind. We'll be satisfied simply and capable of understanding the meaning of our life's journey, you know, feeling a connection with God in the heart and seeing God in everything. That's what we're meant to do. You know, that's what this life is for. And if we hear regularly and we really reflect on that knowledge and we try to become like Krishna saying, then it'll be a life well spent. Thank you.
Okay, we have to stop here.
Time to go to bed.
Yes, it's exactly 9 p.m.
Okay.
Again, thank you so much, Prabhu.
Thank you all so much. I appreciate it. I appreciate what all the, what should I say? It's not Russians, but what do we say? Like when we mean Russia, is there a term that you use?
Russian speaking.
Russian speaking.
No.
So, yeah.
Okay.
No, that doesn't work either.
Well, I mean, she's from Belarus, I'm from Ukraine. We have so mixed groups.
Yeah. Is there one term that, I mean, you can't say Soviet Union, Soviet.
Yeah, like Soviet Upper Sampradaya.
Russian speaking, is it Russian speaking? Is that?
Yeah, Russian Sangha, that's okay, you know.
The Russian
Western
Sangha.
people, everyone thinks that you're all Russians, but that's fine.
If I say Russian Sangha, nobody feels offended. Like, I'm not Russian. I'm from Kazakhstan or something like that.
I think in material world they might be, but in
Okay, not here.
once the devotees, it's fine.
Okay. Well, I
I
appreciate so much what all the Russian devotees in New York and in other places are doing, and the way that you're reaching out to people and the way that you serve. You know, it's really great. So if I can be of a little of assistance, I will be very grateful to all of you.
We will send you email tonight.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you all so much.
You know, this kind of opportunity we never miss. So just expect that we'll get back to you soon.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's it.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Shri Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.